Two out of the last three Grand Prix has seen Marc Marquez crash in a position where we maybe didn't expect him to be in. Now, he did crash in Coda. It was his own mistake. He was leading by 2.5 seconds, got into the damp patch on the curbs, and Christ, it was his own fault. He bounced back and then won in Qatar. And then we get to his home race at the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez. He doesn't get the start that he wants. He gets in a little bit of a scrap with Pecco Bagnaia. He is sitting in third place on the third lap and he crashes out at turn 9. And he remounts and gets to 12th place. But when you look at that, that's 46 points that Marc Marquez has left potentially on the table. As when you look at the pace that he had for the Spanish Grand Prix, he was the fastest rider pretty much on track with a battered bike as he was riding through the pack. Will this come back and haunt him at the end of the season? Let's take a closer look at that. Now, Marquez has admitted that he really doesn't know the limits of this Ducati at times, as it suggests that he has some margin with it, but also I do think that there's a other side to this, as he has said that the bike is doing things so well in areas that he is really comfortable in, that often at times I think with the Ducati and the characteristics of it, it's a moving target in terms of the window that it needs to be in. A mistake can just crop out of nowhere. And there's substance to that. I think Pecco Bagnaia has explained it very well in terms of the feeling that he has. He hasn't crashed out of a Grand Prix yet, but it's clear to see that Bagnaia is struggling more than Marquez in the sense of bike feeling and being able to understand the direction of that 2025 bike. Bagnaia's comments after the Spanish Grand Prix were quite telling, as he said that Marc is able to ride around the problems. Now, you've heard that saying before of riding around an issue with the bike. I mean, you think of Marc Marquez on the Honda, that was pretty much how it was for him in the most part of his career with Honda. He was able to mask the issue with his talent and get the results when no one else could. It's slightly different this year. He has a bike that has so much potential with that GP25. People say that the 24 is maybe better. Well, maybe, but if you look at the results, Marc Marquez has won 8 races. If you include sprints, Pecco Bagnaia has won 1, and Alex Marquez has run the other one on the GP24, so it's currently, 9-1 in favour of the GP25? Yeah, I think that there's things with Marquez that his season has been so good, and when he looks back at the numbers, for example, he has 3 crashes in total through from the start of the season to now. One of them has came in a wet practice session at Coda. One of them's came in the Grand Prix, and another one's came in a Grand Prix. Frustrating because he's crashed less, way more compared to that he did last year, and that's a point to look at. We looked at him last year on the GP23. Of course, he was learning the Ducati, and he was learning to get away from the feeling of the Honda. He would push the limit of that Ducati to understand where it is in practice or in qualifying, then he would crash. He hasn't done that this year because I think he's had so much margin, and he feels so good with the bike in a practice session. He feels so good in a qualifying session. He's had 4 to 5 pole positions. He has had every single practice session pretty much. I think he's been inside the top 3. So he has something that he has a margin, we could say. But with him in the sprint races, it's completely different. He is unbeaten in sprint races. He's won 5 out of 5. I think there is some unbelievable feeling that he has in the sprint. And he talks about this, the trying to play down his expectations after winning a sprint because he knows the job isn't done. And that's a part of it. It's not like it was in 2019 when Marquez was at a level of this standard where he built up to the race. It was just on a Sunday. Didn't have to deal with an extra race. And yeah, I think that patience-wise for Marc, he needs to just kind of eradicate those mistakes that we're seeing in Grand Prix because, yeah, he honestly, he probably could have won when you look at it, he really could be unbeaten this year, really. If you think about the crisis, he was going to win in Coda before the mistake. His pace suggested he was going to win in Jerez when the tyre drop off happened in the second part of that race. But yeah, ifs, buts, and maybes. The results are he's won 8 races. He's crashed in 2 of them. And how does he fix that? Well, he's going to tracks now that he likes. And he likes Jerez, of course, and he loves Coda. And will he try to find that limit earlier, say in a practice session? He might try and just get rid of the feelings that, the unpredictability. But that's the thing that I can't put my finger on. The unpredictability of the Ducati that Bagnaia has talked about. You get a different feeling each time. One lap you feel great, the next it's not so great. That is a key factor in this. I think with the Honda, with Mark, when he was able to find the limit, the bike didn't change that much, so he knew, okay, when you get that certain feeling and then you crash, I know where it is. I'm not going to go near it again. But with this year, I think the factory team have some work to do. I think they may have solved it in the Jerez test. That's the key here. But I always think if you say you solve it in a test, the real test is the Grand Prix or the race after, so you can show that you've made that step. They did that in 24 with the GP24. They made that step, and then you could see the gap between 24 and the 23 really come into play from the races onwards after Jerez last year. Yeah, I think that Alex Marquez has the perfect, how could I say, he's got the perfect spot in all this. He can just continue doing what he does on a Euro bike with all the data, no new parts, just enjoy himself really and kind of pick up the pieces when the factory boys are struggling. But with Mark, is it a mentality thing? Does he want to be perfect? Of course, everyone wants to be perfect. But he said that he won't have perfect races every race. And yet, to come 2 out of the last 3, the mistakes, it's not worrying. It's just, will it happen again? And that's the thing. With Mark, it's so difficult to predict because he looks so good for the weekend. I often think at times whenever he's kind of chasing and trying to make up the difference, he actually is almost better than leading every lap. And you could say it's a contributing factor to the crisis that he had. Well, more the crisis that he had at Jerez. He was sitting behind a few others. He didn't really need to make up the corner speed that he did at that turn 8 when he crashed because he was so strong there anyway. Turbulent there, pushed a bit too much. All these little factors played into it and he went down. So yeah, I think Mark has things that he can work on. Been pretty much a fantastic season for him, so I still think he's the most complete Marc Marquez we've ever seen in terms of how he thinks on a bike. But the mistakes, just learning the limit with the Ducati, I think that says how good it actually is when the riders don't actually know where the limit is because they're trying to find it always, and it's this good at this part of the season already. So yeah, I'm interested in it. It's a real interesting dynamic because you look at Pecco, you look at Mark, and you see how they are. They're only separated by 19 points, but really, when you look at it this season, Pecco hasn't really looked like he's even got close to Mark on occasions. So yeah, let's see what happens when we get to Le Mans. I think that they're going to have plenty to work on. I think they're going to be very strong. And I also think there's going to be other Ducatis in the mix to try and, yeah, get amongst the factory boys. And I'm excited for that.